What's up, Raider Nation? Welcome to TRU Raider Podcast. I'm your host, TRU Raider. There's been a lot of speculation, man. I haven't been live for a minute. I was out of state, and then I got sick, and then there's just been this and that and that. It's all good, man. I'm here today, man. So, there's not been a whole lot moving around for us. Free agency was a little lackluster, honestly. I think that we made some solid moves. I've been happy with not overspending on people that we don't need to overspend on. And the Geno Smith trade looks solid to me. We still don't know the contract. The only thing I'm really upset about is losing Robert Spillane and Trayvon Merrick. But the players that we pulled in as kind of like a replacement, they're pretty comparable. They're not probably going to be quite as good, but I do believe that these were good value pickups, right? And that seems to be the trend that's happening right now with John Spytek and Pete Carroll, is that they are going for those value pickups. So can't really be mad about it, man. I mean, a lot of us were kind of like hoping that there was going to be a little bit of a bigger splash, but I think that they are playing it safe and they're doing the moves that are more concise, more proper, right? So it really makes me wonder, what is this going to look like for the draft? We got the draft coming up. It's a month away. And, there's so many different ideas that are going out there, so much speculation, not only within Raider Nation, but also in the mainstream media. And, I gotta say, man, a lot of the takes I don't really believe are going to be the route that we go. Really, I do not believe that we're going to take the route that most of these mainstream people are saying that we're going to take, right? There's some moves that are going to be a little bit wiser, some moves that are not going to be as wise, man. So let's go ahead and talk about it, man. So what we got, I pulled up what I believe are the top 10 picks for this draft, right? And if you look at the top 10 picks in this draft, there's some of these that are going to be off the board right away, right? And what I'm really looking at is that the Raiders, because we traded for Geno Smith and we brought Geno Smith in, probably going to be here for 2 or 3 years, right? This puts us in a position where we don't necessarily just have to draft out of necessity. We don't have to just go for the position of need, that we can really take a step back and do best player available. Now, if we're looking at best player available, I wanted to pull up these top 10 guys, right? And really, the guys that are going to be best player available are most likely not going to be there anymore whenever it is that we do actually pick. So a lot of the mock drafts are looking at Ashton Genty, right? They're saying Ashton Genty to the Raiders, Ashton Genty to the Raiders, which is really weird because not so long ago, everything was saying Shedeur Sanders to the Raiders, and everybody was so hyped up that Shedeur Sanders is going to be a Raider and the Raiders are going to trade up to get Shedeur Sanders. And I think that there's one point that pretty much all of Raider Nation can agree on, is that we need to not trade up in the draft, right? At least I haven't seen anybody that's kind of like really pushing for us to trade up. I don't think that it's worth trading up for anybody. I think that we need to stay where we at 6 or move back. Where'd I get this hat? Honestly, man, I don't even remember, dude. I don't even remember. All right, so Cam Ward, right, is probably gonna be off the board. Travis Hunter is probably going to be off the board. Abdul Carter is probably going to be off the board. And I pull up these players, right, because it's like, all right, if we actually had our choice with all of these players, let's say all of them are available at pick number 6, which is not going to happen, right? But if all of these, Shane played with the gift. Thank you. Salute. If all of these players are going to be available, then, what is it that we believe that Pete Carroll, Tom Brady, John Spytek, like, what is Raider Nation actually going to do in that kind of position? Of course, I think the no-brainer would be pick up Cam Ward, right? I think number 2 on that list would have to be Travis Hunter. and number 3 would have to be Abdul Carter. So I don't believe that any of them are going to be available anymore. Let's see if I remember how to change this thing, man. I don't remember how to change it over here. I'm going to do my best, man. Let's see. I figured it out one day, man, and now it's like, there we go. Nope. There we go. Boom, got it. Nailed it. All right. So we got Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. I think those are the top 3 prospects in this draft. I am a little bit worried about Abdul Carter and that foot injury where they said he wasn't going to do any kind of surgery. John Apple with the follow salute. And so that made me pretty worried, right? That made me really worried because there was that whole thing that happened with Tyree Wilson, man. And we don't want that, happening again. We end up drafting. So we picked up Tyree Wilson at pick number 7, which is ridiculous because there was offensive linemen on the board. Jalen Carter was on the board. We had many good prospects that we should have picked instead, but we ended up going with Tyree Wilson. So far, he's kind of a bust, right? And I think Tyree Wilson will kind of make a comeback this year. I don't think he's ever going to be a good enough player for where we drafted him, but I do believe that he's going to be stepping it up a little bit more this year because that first year he had no offseason. He was supposed to be behind Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones lost his marbles, and Tyree Wilson got thrown in there way before he was ready. And I think it shook his confidence, man. And then last season he had a full offseason. And most times going into year 2 is when people really take that step up. But it was really his first off season, so he was still behind when it comes to that, and it kind of just put him in a position where he did better but not absolutely great. So I have a feeling that we're going to see Tyree Wilson really starting to catch his stride this season, but I still don't think he's worth a number 6 overall, which brings me to my next point, right, which is Mason Graham, defensive tackle. He's been mocked to us a couple of times, man, and a lot of people like him. I like the idea of a defensive tackle early on. It could really kind of make this Raiders defensive line just kind of elite, right? Is if we were to be able to pick up more help on that defensive line early in the draft, theoretically. But when we really take a look at this, I'm not so convinced about Mason Graham. Mason Graham kind of like his tape doesn't really show as much as we saw in prospects like Will Anderson and Jalen Carter, right? Like I don't really think that at number 6 he'd be a good pickup. I really think that he's more of like between 12 and 16, somewhere in that range, right? I do think he's a good player, but at number 6, I don't really like the idea of that, right? So really, if Mason Graham is off the board when the Raiders pick, that is to our advantage. Another guy that's going to be falling down draft boards is Will Johnson, right? And Will Johnson, he struggled with an injury at the end of last year, and then at the end of last year, Scott family and Raiders for life in the building. What's good, man? What's up? Salute. Trade back if we can, but if we have to pick at 6, I like Membao. So I'm gonna finish the point about Will Johnson, then we'll talk about that, right? So Will Johnson, not only did he have this injury and he didn't participate in the combine, but he had another recent injury. And it's really, really concerning to me. He was like touted as like the top cornerback prospect in this draft, but I do not believe that that's going to be what happens. I think Will Johnson's going to fall further down, maybe somewhere between 16 and 25. I really think he's going to fall. Rich Uncle Penny, Mason has a high motor, a run stop stuffer, and will get after your QB. That is facts, right? And he is good, but I don't know that he is pick number 6 good. And the more that we can stack this defensive line, the more I'd be about it, right? But when we look at what God Family and Raiders for Life was talking about, Membao at number 6, right? And that's the next guy I was going to talk about. Membao is like really the top prospect when it comes to tackles in this draft. Now, if you look at a world where the Raiders offensive line is Colton Miller, Jordan Meredith, Jackson Powers Johnson at center, Dylan Parham at right guard, which, his grades are actually pretty high. It looked like he struggled a lot this year, but a lot of that had to do with being right next to Andre James and a rookie right tackle in DJ Glaze. If we were to pick up Membao's winning that job over DJ Glaze, right? I really think that puts us in a position where, because Jackson Powers Johnson will be at center, and because if we added Membao to the right tackle, Dylan Parham's going to play better just based off of that. And it really puts us in a position where our offensive line is actually going to be looking pretty good if we do that, right? I didn't, Shane played. I did not bring up Jalen Walker because I don't think he's going to go as high as 6. I actually don't even think he's going to go top 10. I do believe that he'll go in the top 20, but I don't really think that he's going to end up in the top 10. Salute to you. Thank you for the gifts. So then we got Will Campbell, right? And Will Campbell is one of those dudes that he's going to translate to being a guard in the NFL, right? That's just what it's going to be for Will Campbell. And I don't really know that it would be a great decision for the Raiders to go with a guard at number 6. While he'd probably be a pretty damn good guard, I think that we have bigger needs at number 6, right? And so if that's where I'm sitting, right, is that's like the process of elimination for me. Is we have the 3 guys, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and Abdul Carter, that are definitely not going to be there anymore at 6, right? Because I would take any of those in a heartbeat. And then if Will Campbell, Will Johnson, and Mason Graham are not worthy of picking at number 6, in my opinion, right? And then if we look at, we got Ashton Jenny, T-Mac, wide receiver. We got Membao, right tackle. And then we got Shedeur Sanders. Let's say all 4 of those players are available at pick number 6. What does that look like? I think that complicates things for us. Because while that is a beautiful position to be in, right, to have our pick out of Shedeur Sanders, he's probably going to be the second quarterback off the board. I know a lot of people are saying that it's going to be Jackson Dart. I don't think Jackson Dart goes before Sanders. I really don't. I like Jackson Dart. I do not think he goes before Sanders. Then we got what's going to be the best tackle in the draft, true tackle. We got the best running back, which Ashton Genty, man, as much as it seems like a pick that the Raiders probably wouldn't do at number 6, I actually think that there's something to it, right? Because Ashton Genty is going to be a generational talent, right? And people are like, oh, he's only 5'9" and da-da-da. Like, dude, we don't need a 6'4" running back. You know what I'm saying? Like, actually, them short running backs kind of have an advantage because they can hide behind the offensive line really good, and it's a lot harder to track them down. And this dude breaks tackles like a beast. He plays bigger than his size. Now, will that translate to the NFL? I see a lot of criticism that they're saying Ashton Genty is not going to be able to break those same tackles in the NFL. And yeah, there's going to be some adjustment, right? But a lot of people were talking like that about Brock Bowers, saying, well, Brock Bowers dominated in college football, but Brock Bowers is not going to dominate in the NFL. This is the big boys league, right? And then all of a sudden, Brock Bowers gets in and boom, he dominates, right? Let's see, Shane, in the 90s, there was a bunch of shorter running backs. And that's facts, right? And he kind of reminds me, a lot of people compare him to Barry Sanders. He reminds me a little bit more of Emmitt Smith. And if we can get a running back that even compares to Emmitt Smith or Barry Sanders, like, yeah, that's almost a no-brainer, right? But we have a need for an X wide receiver. We absolutely have a need for an X wide receiver. And they've made it very, very clear that we're not going to go out and get one in free agency unless we end up with a Stephon Diggs or something like that. There was a little bit of smoke earlier in the week, where George Pickens shared a picture of him and Tom Brady, and it was like a silver and black picture. Speculation, speculation. What it comes down to is I don't think we're going to trade for George Pickens, right? Let me see real quick. Raider, Genty, then Dart, trade, and a third to get back in the first. That could be interesting, right? So you're talking about get Genty at number 6 and then trade back into the first round to get Jackson Dart late in the first. Jackson Dart might go in the first. He really might. And having Geno Smith, it puts us in a position where we could sit Jackson Dart for a couple of years, sit him for 2 years, let him learn, let him develop, and then roll him out, man. And I think that wouldn't be too bad of an idea. Matt Heavy G, Genty, people are knocking him because of his upright run style. I'm not worried about his run style, man. The amount of yards, just the highlight reel that this dude is, like for people to be knocking him because of his run style, it's being effective, right? Sometimes run styles don't always look the same, but if it's effective, that's what really counts. Let's see. Cliff, not a great comparison. Brock was in SEC balling as a freshman. Genty played in the Mountain West. And that's another reason why people are knocking Genty. And some of the downside of Genty is the amount of miles that he had on him this last season. To be carrying that many touches, that many yards, it can really put a running back in a position where he's not going to be fully healthy coming into this season. And that worries me, right? Like there was that whole thing that happened when Josh Jacobs won the rushing title, and then all of a sudden he just wasn't the same running back the next year, right? He wasn't the same running back, and then he ended up getting injured towards the end of the year, and it's exactly what was predicted. Is that because he won the rushing title, he was probably not going to finish all the games, and that's probably going to be the same for Saquon Barkley. He's probably not going to finish the season. Let's see. No extension for Geno, 3 years, 3 recycled QBs. Yeah, I would hate for us to hold on to Geno unless he really just plays good, See, Raider, Geno is a fraud. He had wins versus teams resting players, no quality wins last year. I've been watching a lot of tape on Geno Smith, man. And we'll get back to the draft stuff, right? But I've been watching a whole lot of tape on Geno Smith, and I almost made a video about him being underrated, right? Because I was seeing a lot of good things. And then I decided I watched this video yesterday, and it was like kind of like the story of Geno Smith, right? And it started and it's on YouTube. It was in started in college and what happened with the Jets, and they talked about how one of his own players cold cocked him in the locker room, pause if necessary, and broke his jaw. And then just kind of what the track has been for Geno Smith. And there's a lot of his character that I like about not giving up on himself and really, going out there and putting in his best and practicing in a way and preparing in a way as if he was one day going to be a starter, and now he is. But I saw a lot of the picks that he throws are really, really bad timing, right? And I'm not a stats guy. I am not one of those people that's going to look at stats and be like, well, his stats said this or that, blah, 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 because it's all about timing, right? If you look at Justin Herbert, he always has really good stats, and his timing is fucking trash. It is, man. Let me get to some of these chats real quick. God, family, and Raiders for life. You win and lose games in the trenches, first and foremost. Like Kevin Costner said, our man Membout, no matter what. And you might not be wrong with that. You might not be wrong. Let's see. Some guys just need a new place to ball, Matt Heavy G. And that's true, right? It's not really a new place, but it kind of is a new place, right? Because he's coming under the same coach. Geno Smith was given an opportunity by Pete Carroll, and then coming into the Raiders, it's just kind of like he's like, this is like the only coach that ever really truly believed in me, and so I'm going to go that way. Shane, thank you for the gifts. 831 with the follow. Salute, man. Let me see real quick. I'm gonna try to come back over here. My 2 cents with the salute. What's good, man? Good to see you, man. Navman, 93 Navman. Salute. Missed you, bro. Constantly. My apology. Bro, you know what? I haven't been live for probably like 2 weeks, man. I've just been putting out short videos, which are not hitting the algorithm at all, man. I'm screwing myself on the algorithm, but there's just been a lot going on in my life, man. I'm not one of those people that gets to just do this as, as my career, right? I don't do this for a living. I have a full-time job, one income family. I take care of my wife and my kids. I got a lot of responsibilities, man, and so I try to come on to, YouTube and TikTok as much as I can, but I don't always have time for it, man. Do not always have time. Shane with more gifts. Thank you. Yeah. Geno Smith is a good QB, but he struggles in the red zone. And that is accurate, man. That is accurate. And 831 Raiders drafting a QB, which brings us to the only other player that we have not discussed on here, and that is Shedeur Sanders. See, Shedeur Sanders is falling down draft boards rapidly. He is absolutely falling down. In any of the mock drafts that I do, he's always available at 6. Every single one. And it doesn't even matter what website I use, he's available. California Dave, glad you made it, man. We're only about 20 minutes in, not too bad. Hey, man, salute to you on that, man. So if we look at Shedeur Sanders, it puts us in this weird position, right? Because Shedeur Sanders is more and more looking like he's not rated to go that high in the draft, right? If his pro comp is Geno Smith, do we really want to do that? Well, there's a lot of question to that, right? Because if we end up in a position where, Geno Smith comes over to the Raiders and balls out, are we going to be like, damn, we should have drafted, his college comp and Shedeur Sanders to come in and kind of carry the torch, right? Because let's say we were to draft Shedeur Sanders, right? And I just put out a video the other day saying this is what we should do, right? Raider Deb, salute. I put out a video saying this is what we should do. And then the more I think about it, the more I'm not exactly sure, right? And I'm one of those people, man, when I get new information, I will change my mind, right? I don't live my life in a closed-minded way to where I make a decision and that is the absolute truth and it's not ever going to move on from that, right? Like what it really comes down to is when we get more information, we need to be open to being able to change our ideas and what we believe to be the best for our own lives, for the Raiders, whatever it may be. And so when I look at Shedeur Sanders, I've been convinced for a while that Shedeur Sanders is absolutely what we needed to do at number 6. And then we picked up Geno Smith. Shane, thank you for the gifts. I appreciate you, man. Picking up Geno Smith puts us in a position where we don't have to draft a quarterback. And that brings a lot of opportunity, right? That brings the opportunity of being able to get best player available. Raiders full Chris in the building. What's good, man? What's good? And when we look at best player available, is Shedeur Sanders the best player available if any of these people are on the board? That's a hard one for me, man, because that would put us to where we are drafting for the position more than best player available. Cliff, I don't mind taking Sanders. The Seahawks were trying to move off Geno, but never picked early enough. Yeah, moving off of Geno Smith and then getting a Sam Darnold is like a weird play, man, because if you look at the offensive line that Geno Smith played under over there in Seattle, it was a disgusting offensive line. This dude had so many pressures, and I think he had like the number 4 passing percentage under pressure. which is pretty amazing, right? Because if you have the most pressures, then to be able to throw with that much accuracy with a larger number, that makes a huge difference. It really, really does. So if you put Geno Smith behind a good offensive line, which brings back the Membow argument, then this dude can cook, right? And if you look at his tape, man, and if you guys don't follow Raider Films on YouTube, go check out Raider Films, man. This guy does amazing tape breakdowns, and I was watching a breakdown that he did of Geno Smith. I think he did it like 2 days ago. And I really like that, he doesn't try to fluff it, right? He doesn't try to make it look like, oh, he's good and let's point out all his good stuff. Like, I'm not trying to watch highlights. I want to watch, like, hey, let's check out what's the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And he started off with the bad, and he is showing a lot of the mistakes that Geno Smith was making, right? And some of those were like trying to make throws that he shouldn't be making. Some of those were just that he's running for his friggin' life. And so when you're pressured that much, you're going to make throws that you would rather not throw. You know what I'm saying? Charlie, Raiders will be sorry for hiring Chip Kelly. I don't think so, man. I think Chip Kelly does not belong as a head coach. He's a good coordinator. He is. He's probably the best offensive coordinator we've had in a long time. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. California Dave, I love the OT Adamizu, natural right tackle. And we need that, right? And so, like, if you look at this tape breakdown with Geno Smith, it's like some of them were like receiver drops where it gets, tipped into the air, and that's an interception. And, what I was talking about, the timing of things, there was a lot of things about Geno Smith that reminded me of Derek Carr. And that was what kind of discouraged me because don't get me wrong, I really liked Derek Carr a lot. But there was this thing that Derek Carr would do where, he's absolutely balling out and then he makes some boneheaded decision, in the red zone or something. And all of a sudden, the whole momentum of the game shifts because of a bad pick, right? And I saw a lot of that on his tape. I really saw a lot of that on Geno Smith's tape, and that has me kind of worried. God, Family, and Raiders, all mods are great and powerful because they can snipe your ass in any given moment. Dead man, Nav man, you both are great and powerful in my eyes. With the moderators in the building, that's what's good. Let me see. So, if we get down to pick number 6, right, and we have Shedeur Sanders, Will Campbell, Will Johnson, Mason Graham, Armand Membow, T Mac, and Ashton Genty, who would you guys pick? California Dave, how many times did DC fumble out of the end zone? There was a lot of those, just the timing of stats. And that's what I was saying about Justin Herbert. The dude is always touted as this great quarterback, but his timing is garbage. The timing is absolute garbage. And so, yeah, you're putting up good numbers on the stat sheet, but when it translates to in game, you have quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts from the Eagles, where he won a Super Bowl and he was rated like the 15th best quarterback or something like that. It's because he's not fluffing stats. He's not putting up these pretty numbers that look good really for him, but not for the team. He puts up team numbers. And that's where we lacked with Derek Carr, is that he didn't put up team numbers. He put up Derek Carr numbers. And so Geno Smith comes in here and plays like a Derek Carr, and he's putting up Geno Smith numbers, but not Derek Carr but not Raider numbers. Then we're in a really bad position, right? So we got, California Dave is saying either tackle. Raiders Full Chris is saying Shedeur Sanders, baby. Navman 93 Navman saying Membo. Let's see. Cliff saying, in my opinion, Will Johnson is best player available, but this might be the last chance to draft a decent QB for a while, and that is a good point. Except that Will Johnson ended the year in an injury, and then now he just picked up another injury, and so it's really he worries me, man. User that does not have a name says Sanders, and okay, let's say this turnaround. My 2 cents saying Mason Graham. Let's say this turnaround actually turns out to be as good as we hope, right? Where we bring in Pete Carroll, we bring in, you know, excuse me, we bring in Cliff to be the OC. There's a lot of moving parts, right? Geno Smith comes in, and then, whatever the draft looks like, right? Let's say we are a team that's teetering on the playoffs, right? And that's what I'm kind of picturing. But man, last year I said we were going to go 10-7, and that was not the case at all. I also thought we were going to go with Aiden O'Connell, and I didn't want to just like pull back and be like, oh no, we got Gardner Minshew. I'm not saying 10-7 anymore, but I was worried. When we ended up with Luke Getsy, I was worried. When we ended up with Gardner Minshew, I was worried. Luis saying Membo. Um, there's a lot that I worry about, right? Because if we are that team that's teetering in the playoffs, right? 10-7, 9-8, we're fighting for the wild card for the next couple of seasons, which is probably where we're going to be at, right? I don't see us coming in and just taking over the AFC West and, winning 13, 14 games. Like, I don't see that happening for us. What I see happening for us is that we have an opportunity to be in playoff contention. When is the next time that we are going to be in a good position to draft a quarterback? Just like how Cliff was saying, and that, man, that shit, it worries me because then we're in a position where we either have to hope that a good starting quarterback, like our franchise quarterback, falls into the later, first round, which happens, right? Lamar Jackson was picked, what wasn't he, like number 29 or something like that? He was way at the end of the first round. And then I don't know, man. Or we trade up, right? In the next couple of years, we trade up to get a quarterback, which can set a franchise back. But what it comes down to, man, is that like any of these picks, if they land, we're not going to be worried about it, right? If we pick up a Will Johnson at number 6 and then he ends up being the best corner in the league, we're not going to give a shit that we overdrafted him at 6, right? If we pick up a Mason Graham, and I think that Mason Graham shouldn't go at number 6, we pick up Mason Graham and then he ends up being a beast, right in between Malcolm Kuntz and Christian Wilkins, and takes over that job from Adam Butler. I'm not going to be worried about that at all. Joey with the follow salute. But if you make a pick at number 6 and it turns out to be a Tyree Wilson, everybody's going to care that we drafted that player at number 6. And the thing that worries me about picking up Shedeur Sanders at number 6 is that he's not going to play for at least 1 year and probably 2 years. And that could be to an advantage, right? I think if a Shedeur Sanders sat behind Geno Smith for 2 seasons, right? Because right now we waited too long, which is actually bugging me because Geno Smith's cap hit wasn't supposed to hit us this year as long as we signed that contract before last weekend. We did not get a contract signed. And so he is going to be a $31 million cap hit for us. So we have that season, and then he's probably going to want at least another 2 seasons on top of that. So we're probably in a position where we have Geno Smith for at least 2 seasons. If you have Shedeur Sanders sit for 2 seasons under Geno Smith, he comes into the starting role, and I think that he would be a beast. But that's only if he gets to sit for at least 1 year. And mind you, if Shedeur Sanders is available at 6, and we draft him, I think it's going to be all about Tom Brady was convinced, because he's been working with him in the off seasons, he's convinced that Shedeur Sanders is that guy. And yeah, a lot of people are saying, well, maybe, Brady was a good quarterback, but, is he really a good scout? I got to say that Tom Brady has worked with this kid one-on-one. And since he's worked with him one-on-one in a mentorship role, I think that he could make it a good decision, right? And so if Shedeur Sanders is available at number 6 and we don't get him, that definitely means that Brady is like, this dude is not it, right? Raiders full Chris. Toe injuries are rough to recover from and usually lead to further leg injuries. Hope for the best for Will Johnson, but I don't know if I would take him at 6 anymore. And that's exactly it, man. You know, he might not bounce back from this injury very well. And if he doesn't bounce back from this injury, he could be another Tyree Wilson. And that is, we can't afford that. Do we need to step it up in our cornerback room? Yeah, we do, but I don't know. Okay, so my 2 cents and Navman are saying Membao and Mason Graham are kind of like 1A, 1B. And I could see that, right? You guys are going trenches, right? And I love the idea of going trenches because if we can really build these trenches, we have some good players. We really do have some good players. But I don't think that I don't even know how to say his name right, man. Raheem Mostert, I don't think that he's going to be a running back 1. And I don't think that Sincere McCormick or Dylan Laube is going to be a running back 1. I do see us, if we don't pick up an Ashton Genty, that we go with an Omarion Hampton or a Judkins or a Trayvon Henderson. There's plenty of good running backs that are going to go into the 2nd and 3rd round, guys that can be starters, right? And I'm all about that, man. I am all about that. But I don't really know, man. I don't really know. Let's see. I really think that that's a possibility that we end up going with a running back later on. If we go with a running back later on, then, picking up a defensive tackle, a right tackle, or a receiver in T-Mac, or even a QB that's going to sit for a couple of years in Shedeur Sanders, I'm all about that. Now, Shedeur Sanders is really going to fall as much as people are saying. There's something to that. Mel Kiper's mock draft 3.0 has Shedeur Sanders going at number 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I think that Shedeur Sanders at pick number 21 is great value. It really is. Shedeur Sanders is not going to fall into the 2nd round. My audio is going in and out. For real, bro. Where's full Chris? Let me know if it's still going in and out, man. That's crazy. Let me see. California Dave is saying playoffs. I'm hoping to be 500 in our division. I think that we're going to be in a position to be a playoff contender. But it's hard to say, man. It's really hard to say. At least now we know where we're at quarterback, but we still have a lot of question marks, man. Who's our ex wide receiver? Who's our running back 1? These things, they worry me, man. 93 Navman, bro. Our defense was decimated with injuries as well. That didn't help. Epps, then Kuntz, Wilkins, Max was hobbled nearly all year. And I really think that means that we need to go with offense early in the draft. At least the first 2 rounds, I think, need to be offensive players, man, because, if we end up in, King 89, the audio for TikTok and for YouTube is separate. I can't combine them on one. So I got TikTok on my phone and I got YouTube on my computer, man. But I really think that our defense is, with the exception that we lost Hobbs, Spillane, and Merrig, our defense is better than our offense. And I think that we're going to recover pretty decently from that, because the pickups that we made in Roberts and I can't even think of his name. I want to say Johnson. We got a couple of players that I feel that are going to be able to kind of fill, the gaps over there with safety and linebacker, and especially if we get that linebacker from the Patriots, I think that we're going to be in a good position. But offense needs help. Our offense needs so much help, which makes me lean towards getting an Ashton Genty or Armand Membao. It really does. T-Mac, I wouldn't be upset. And that's what it comes down to, right? Is if we picked up Shador Sanders, Membao, Graham, Genty, or T-Mac, I'm not going to be upset. I'm a little worried about Graham, though. I am a little bit worried about Graham. Let me see. Damn, now I want some In and Out. Bro, I was in Utah this last weekend, man. I got to go hit In and Out, dude. We don't have In and Out in New Mexico, man. So I was pumped about that. Okay, Navman saying sound is good. That's got to be on Raiders Full Chris then. Bro, you guys are funny, dude. All right. Let's see. God family and Raiders for life. Our D line is better than our O line, which is why I would draft O line as priority over D line. Running back doesn't matter if we don't shore up our line first, and the right side is what needs help first. And DJ Glaze having a full offseason as the starter, and he came off a pretty decent year. I think that he could potentially be that guy. Yeah, Night Warrior, I'm in New Mexico, man. But you got a great point, man. Is Membao an upgrade over DJ Glaze? Absolutely, man. He is absolutely an upgrade over DJ Glaze, which I'm telling you guys, man, like the last couple of drafts, there were players that I was like, I want Jalen Carter, right? Jalen Carter was absolutely who I wanted, right? And then Jaden Daniels, sell the farm to go get Jaden Daniels. And, for this draft, man, I'm like, I'm not convinced on any of these players, but I like all of these prospects that are early in the draft, right? These top 10 prospects that I have on the screen, I like all of them. But I'd have to say that my top 3 are Genty, Membao, and Sanders, and not in that order. And not because I really am convinced that Sanders is that high of a touted quarterback, but because it's a good opportunity to pick up a good quarterback that I believe will develop in this league, and he could sit behind Geno Smith for at least a year or two. Let me see, man. Luis, I think having a top five offensive line has more impact. Geno isn't impactful running for his life. Mason Graham would give us a fresh rotation at the defensive line position. Seeing we go back into what I was talking about, Geno Smith's tape, is that, you see Geno Smith, he can move in the pocket really well, right? He can scramble, he can even run. And so if you give him a good line where he can actually stay put a little bit and make concise throws, I'm telling you, Geno Smith is probably going to move up a couple ranks as a starting quarterback if he has a good line. And I think just moving over to the Raiders with the line that we already have, I do believe Geno Smith will play better with this offensive line than he did in Seattle. And a lot of the tape that I watch on Geno Smith, it seems like he does really good with tight ends, man. And I got to be all about that. 93 Navman with the $2 holler. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you for real. Thanks for keeping the lights on, man. Would love to see Glaze move to right guard with a beast right tackle. That's something that I had thought about too, man. I was looking at, if you look at Dylan Parham and DJ Glaze, who's going to play better at that position? While Dylan Parham has more experience, he's a little bit undersized. Night Warrior with the gift. Thank you, man. Thank you. Dylan Parham's a little bit undersized, not extremely, but he's a little bit undersized, where DJ Glaze is bigger than Parham. And if he's been winning that job at right tackle, if you move him into a right guard position next to Membao, then all of a sudden we have domination happening. Now, if we were to do that, right, pick up Membao, then I definitely want to use our second round pick to get a running back. because if you put him with Mostert and a rookie running back, I think that puts us in the best position. And I think Dylan Laube is going to kind of fall into that role as the third down back because we lost Amir Abdullah. And so, getting a rookie running back in the second round, I think is going to be our best shot. And Omarion Hampton, man, like all the mock drafts that I do, he's available at pick number 37. But a lot of the mock drafts that I see online, he's not available anymore. They have him projected to go somewhere in the 20s. And I don't know that he's worth trading back up into the first round for because you have a Trayvon Henderson and a Judkins. And I like Trayvon Henderson more than Judkins, honestly. Night Warrior, thank you. Yeah, tap the screen, tap that screen, boost it. Let me see. Let me get back to some of these, man. All right, my 2 cents. Running back Caleb Johnson in the second, or running back Jordan James in the fourth. So I don't personally want to wait until the fourth to pick up a running back. I would be happy if we did a double dip, right? If we pick up a running back in the first or second round and then pick up another one in the fourth or fifth, I'd be super happy with that. We have a really deep running back class this year, and I really want to see that happen. I really, really do, man. We need that running game to get going. And part of that is offensive line. Part of that was Luke Getsy's scheme was terrible. And then when you have Garner Minshew under center, your running game is going to suck. It's the whole Jimmy Garoppolo thing. All defenses had to do is stack the box, make Minshew beat them with his arm, which they know he can't. He can't even see over the damn offensive line. Night Warrior with the gift. Thank you. Thank you. Let me see. Luis, Membao runs a 5.0 40-yard dash. He's known to put your face in the dirt. Yeah, that's athletic. And yeah, he was the one, if you guys don't know, there was clips about him after the combine where he was running and he was like screaming, right? He's screaming while he's running. And a lot of people were laughing about that. But what that tells me is that meant something to him, right? It meant a lot to him. This is a guy that I believe is going to be the dude to get to the NFL and put in that effort, right? If you look at players like Jamarcus Russell that come into the NFL and they kind of like, oh, I arrived, I'm good, I don't have to work hard. Like those are those guys that have a very short career. When you have somebody like a Membao, like a Max Crosby, like those guys that really come into the league and they're like, I am going to work my ass off because I made it here and I want to stay here. Those are the guys that you really, really want. Damn, man, have me sounding like the Spice Girls over here. God, family, and Raiders for life. Membao at right tackle, Glaze at right guard, JPJ at center, Mumford or Parham at left guard, Miller at left tackle. That sounds like a solid O-line to me. And honestly, I think Jordan Smith is better than Parham and Mumford. Some people wouldn't agree with me on that, but Jordan Meredith really stepped up his game last season, man. When he finally came in for who was it? Cody Whitehair? The dude balled out. He had absolutely amazing numbers. And I think that he earned his spot as a starter. I really do, man. And even if somebody plays astronomical the year before, I still want to see them have to fight for that spot in training camp. They got to prove that they still are worthy, man, because you have somebody during the off season, they take too much vacation time, they didn't exercise enough, they ate like crap, they come in the next year and they might not play as good, man. And so it's that, like, imagine at your 9 to 5, right? At your job, if you had to constantly fight for your position, that would be crazy, man. For one, I don't get paid enough for that. I don't, man. But it kind of brings some competition up, right? It's like, you know what? Like, I got to put my best because I want to keep this spot. And when you're getting paid like these guys, like they need to fight for it, man. California Dave, that's what worries me about Pete Carroll. His O-line picks have sucked. Well, it's good that Pete Carroll's not the one calling the shots, right? Because um holy shit, man, I just blanked out. John Spytek. John Spytek has a history of being on regimes that drafted good O linemen, and so hopefully Spytek has a lot to do with that. But a lot of people like want to give John Spytek a lot of credit for the drafts that were made by teams that he was working for, and he was only a small piece of that. He was never the GM at any of those places, and so to give him credit for that, I don't really think is earned, man. I don't think it's yeah, crazy. All right, let me see. Let me see. Yeah, Navman. Agreed. Top five O line and defense, then average skill players become pro bowlers. And that is absolutely accurate. When you have solid trenches, right? Especially defense as a whole, right? But when you're winning in the trenches, all your other players look good because of it, right? Because if your defensive line is wreaking havoc, right? If you're being able to rush 4 and drop 7, then all of a sudden, like all your corners, safeties, linebackers, all their numbers are going to be way better because you're getting pressure up front. It's the same with the offensive line. If you are absolutely being able to have plenty of time to throw the ball, being able to open up gaps so your running back can actually get some yards, everybody starts to look better. It's crazy, man. Raiders release the follow. Salute, man. Salute. What is going on here? All right. God, family, and Raiders for life. Lauby needs to be forced to hold the football 24 hours a day for a week until he learns not to fumble. Man, and that poor guy, dude, he finally gets his shot and he comes in and just drops the ball. And it's like our running game was so horrible. It was so stupid for AP not to put Lauby out there. Give that dude some reps, man. We're losing games anyway. Like, give that dude some reps. Give him some real live NFL reps because now that's burned into his brain, right? California Dave, Dylan Lauby, aka the Great White Hope. Dude isn't strong enough for the NFL. And that's the thing about playing for them smaller schools and you have amazing numbers, but then you hit the big leagues and then all of a sudden you're in a weird spot, man. God Family and Raiders for life. Judkins / Henderson in the second, and Ollie Gordon on day 3, and I would be stoked. I would be very happy about that too, man. I'd rather have Henderson than Judkins, but I think it's just because he has that home run threat. You know what I'm saying? Ricky Moore with the follow. Salute, man. Let me see. 93 Nav, man. I think we hold on to that one bad fumble, but I personally don't want him to begin with. You didn't want Lauby to begin with? I like Dylan Lauby, man. I watched a lot of tape on him. The problem with Dylan Lauby, man, is that he's undersized and he came from a very small school. I think that he's a good special teams threat, and I think that that's probably going to be primarily his role. But he has an opportunity to earn his way into that Amir Abdullah kind of role where you do special teams and third down back. And I think that that's where he's most useful. Luis Berrios, we have to talk about edge with pick number 37. This is deep. You could get a player, best player available. I think that's good trenches building. I absolutely love Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer is like a beast, right? He's got that, like, I think he's like the one dude on defense in this draft that if he came into the Raiders, that he would just like latch himself to Max Crosby and just try to match that energy, right? And if you get Jack Sawyer matching Max Crosby energy, he's a dude that's really going to move his way up in this league. The difficult part for me is I don't think that we have the luxury of like picking up Membao or Sanders or like a T Mac in the first round and then getting a Jack Sawyer in the second. Then we're in a position where it's like, well, what's our running game, right? Do we really go with running back in the third and just truly believe that that's going to be, our number one guy? I'm not so sure that that's the best play for us. But you end up with a Membao and a Jack Sawyer. Holy shit, man. Actually, now that I said it out loud, I kind of like that, man. I kind of like that. Nah, man, who are you talking about? Eman Worry, 4.38, 40, 10-yard split, 1.49 seconds, 43-inch vertical, broad jump, 11.6, 6'3", 220. If we pick at 6, that's generational. Eman Worry. Am I tripping, bro? Why is this not a familiar name? Nick? Is that who you're talking about? The safety. South Carolina. And we do need a safety, man. We do. This is not a guy that I've really looked at, man. So I'm not going to be able to hold an opinion on this now, man. I'm going to do some homework, all right? California Dave. Whoa, what did I do? This draft seems to be deep with edge and DL. I'm with TRU offense with our first and second round picks. That's really where I think we need the most help, man. I'd love to create another Legion of Boom kind of thing or Legion of Doom or whatever we end up calling it, man. But if we don't get our offensive right, then, our defense is going to be hung out to dry yet again, man. And I don't want to see that anymore. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. Numbo and Landon Jackson. So this is not a guy I've watched any tape on, man. Landon Jackson. Okay. Man, he'd be looking like the white Josh Dobbs, man. Huh. I'm gonna do some homework on him too, man. More homework for TRU Raider. That's where it's at, man. All right. You guys, I've been on for an hour. I'm still trying to recover from this. I've been sick, man. And my voice is starting to give out on me, man. I'm having a hard time. So that's going to be it for today, man. Salute to all you guys, man. You guys are the real ones. I appreciate you guys so much, man. Without you, I'd just be here talking to a screen, and that's no fun, man. That's no fun. That's not what I like to do, man. I like to hear from you guys, man. So with that being said, keep an eye out for me, man. I'm going to be dropping short videos still, and I need to get back on the lives better. I'm going to be in Maryland. I'm leaving Wednesday for Maryland, man. So I'll be gone for a couple days. My schedule's all flip-flop all over the place, man. So I'll do what I can. I'll schedule it in advance. That way you guys can get notified. If you guys have not yet, click that little bell, man. That way when I schedule live, you get notified. Like always, I love you, nation. I'll catch you on the next one.